Hi everyone, this week we'll be learning about yield testing in detail. As you hopefully remember, yield refers to how much of a finished product you have or how much of a processed um, product that you have after you've taken all the trim off. So we're talking about standardized recipes over the last couple of weeks, and standardized recipes always have a yield. For example, the tomato soup recipe might yield 15, 20 liters, whatever it might be. A muffin recipe might yield 12, 24 muffins. That's going to be the yield, the amount it makes. Yield can also refer to the amount of usable product. So that's like a tenderloin, as we'll use an example later, after it's been processed, after it's been peeled or cooked or butchered, or the fat's been taken off or the bones have been taken off. So yield is the final product after it's been processed, or after it's finished, produced. Let's say, for example, you're preparing a recipe for carrot soup and you want to have a kilo of carrots for the recipe, and you buy them. And then once you've peeled them and you've taken the tops off and all of that, you've only got 800 grams of carrots left to use. So your recipe's not going to work properly. So these things are important. In order to do accurate costing and yield testing, or yield testing must be carried out on all of the ingredients in your recipes. So on every single thing. When you look at the yield, you must always consider the losses and the waste that's involved in that, because that waste is money. There's always a dollar value that's attached to vegetable peel or meat or fish trim. And one thing that a lot of chefs forget, brines and syrups and marinades, um, those also cost money. And you need to take that into consideration when you're marinating beef, for instance. Any waste or loss has been paid for, it's always been paid for, and it's still money that's spent. So it's still money that you're spending out, and this cost must always be included in the menu price. So whatever you work out, whatever your wastage is, it's got to be put into the menu price. So we're going to look at that. Well, let's look at the process of yield testing. We're going to do a little exercise. We're going to use whole tenderloin, beef tenderloin. We're going to work it through all the way from beginning to end, the yield testing process. So the first thing that you're going to do is record the original weight or the original volume of the item, whatever it might be. It's the raw weight or your as purchase price or the as purchase weight. So you're going to weigh this piece of tenderloin as it comes in the door, as you buy it from the butcher. That's your as purchase weight. And in this case, we're going to pretend that our whole tenderloin as purchase weight is 2.5 kilos. The next step would be to take our tenderloin and process it. We're going to cut all the trim off the tenderloin, we take the fat off the tenderloin, we're going to take the sinew off, the chain off, all the different parts. We're going to get all of that trim weight. That's all the wastage, if you like, all the bits that were taken off to make this a perfect tenderloin for serving. And we're going to weigh that. That's our trim weight. And so with the tenderloin, if we've taken all the fat and everything off, we're going to pretend that 750 grams is the weight of the trim, the weight of the stuff that we've taken off in order to make it a nice tenderloin. So the fat, the chain, all of that sort of stuff. Notice, by the way, that all of these slides from this one onwards have a red star, so they're very, very important. So let's keep carrying on with the yield testing process. So now that we've got the trim weight, we're going to take that, we're going to subtract that from the as purchase weight, and that's going to give us our edible product weight. So the formula for that is AP weight minus the waste, and that's going to give us our EP weight. If you look at the little calculation in the bottom there, it says that 2,500 grams is the as purchase price. We'll come back to that in a second. We're going to take the waste off, which is 750 grams, and that's going to give us the edible portion weight or the edible product weight, which is 1,750. So 750 grams taken away from the as purchase weight of 2,500 grams is going to give us 1750. And that's our processed piece of tenderloin. That's our edible portion, or our edible product weight. Notice, by the way, we changed the kilo weight of the as purchase price into grams to do the calculation. Remember the magic number, 1,000. Another red star slide. So next thing I want to work out is my yield percentage. And how I'm going to do that is I'm going to convert the edible product weight into a percentage. Fairly simple. You take the edible product weight, you're going to divide it by the as purchase weight, multiply by 100, and that's going to give us your yield percent. If you look at the calculation in the bottom, my edible portion weight was 1750 grams. I'm going to divide that by my as purchase weight, which is 2500 grams, multiply by 100. That's going to give me a yield of 70% for the tenderloin. So after I've taken everything off, all the trim off of the tenderloin, and it's ready to use, I've only got 70% yield out of that. 30% has gone towards the wastage, in other words. Another red star slide. So why is yield percentage important? It's important because as an executive chef, it tells you a lot of different things. You can work a lot of different things out if you know the yield percentage. The first thing that you can work out is how much usable product you will have after you process. So it basically means I can buy a piece of tenderloin and I know that I'm going to get 70% out of that, right? I'm going to buy a kilo of carrots and I know I'm going to get 70% yield out of that. The second thing, it's going to tell me how much raw product I'll need to order. Again, back to the carrots thing, if I want to order a kilo of carrots because my recipe asks for a kilo, and I know that I'm only going to get 70% yield out of that, I'm going to have to buy more carrots in order to get the amount that I need for my recipe. And it's going to actually tell me the actual cost of the product per dollar spent. That basically means that in the beginning, if my tenderloin is going to cost me $23 a kilo, and by the time I trimmed it down, I got 70% off of it, it might be 36. My actual as purchase price may have to change to $36 per kilo in order to be able to make sure that I'm making money on my menu. The red star slide. So once you have your yield percentage, you can translate this information into money, right? It's all about money. Wake up, you gotta make money. You know that thing? That's all about that. If you take into consideration the losses that have happened from the trimmings and the waste and all of that sort of stuff, your as purchase cost for your process ingredient is actually going to be more than you originally paid. Now we're going to look at a little exercise. Following calculations are going to help to provide you with the EP cost. We're going to work it all out using the tenderloin, using actual prices, and see where we are. But remember, this whole thing is about making money. This is why restaurants collapse. This is why restaurants fail, because things aren't costed out properly. And the cost of the things that are being sold on the menu are actually false. So you're selling some of them at a loss before you even start. Another red star slide. So now we're going to look at the process step by step for determining your edible portion costs. The first thing you have to do is record the as purchased cost, right? What you paid for the piece of tenderloin as it came in the kitchen door, as you bought it from the butcher. And in this case, the whole tenderloin, I paid $23 a kilo. Unprocessed, fat and everything on, $23 a kilo. The red star slide. So the next stage in determining your edible portion cost is you're going to calculate your yield factor. Yield factors are brilliant. This is brilliant stuff if you're an executive chef or even if you're running your own small restaurant, because this factor converts all of your all of your calculations into percentages. I'm getting excited about this because I love it. Okay, there's a formula for this, so let's start with that. The formula for working out your yield factor is 100 divided by your yield percent, and that's going to give you your yield factor. So if we use if we use the example of the tenderloin, remember our tenderloin had 70% yield. So if we take 100 and we divide that by 70%, or 0.70, we'll talk about that in a second, it's going to give me a yield factor of 1.42. And that's really important. And by the way, if you look at the little star on the right hand side, you'll see that when you're dividing by a percentage, you place the point in front of the number. So if it's 70%, you're going to divide by 0.70. If it's 80%, you're going to divide by 0.80. Remember that little percentage sign really means 100. So the two circles in the dash, they mean 100. So it means a 70th part of 100. That's what 70% is. So you just move the point 2 places to the left, and that becomes 0.70, and you're going to divide by 0.70 when you're dividing by a percent, depending on what it is. Anyway, my yield factor is 1.42 in this case. Another red star slide. So once the yield factor has been determined, once I've figured out what my yield factor is, it's an easy process to determine what my edible portion cost is. And the formula is quite easy. It's as purchase cost per unit, so it could be pounds, it could be kilos, it could be ounces, it could be anything, multiplied by the yield factor is going to give me my edible portion cost per unit. Again, it can be pounds, it can be kilos, it can be ounces, it just depends. And if you look at this situation here, or the example that I have here, the tenderloin originally cost me $23 a kilo, right? So $23 a kilo was my as purchase price. I'm going to multiply it by my yield factor, which I've just worked out as 1.42, and that means that my edible portion cost is $32.66. So basically, I bought the tenderloin at 23 bucks, but by the time I've taken all the stuff off and I've got the processed piece, it's actually costing me $32.66 a kilo. That means that I have to make sure that I'm using that price when I'm costing tenderloin for my menu. If I do it at the as purchase price, I'm losing money. You can see that quite easily. The other cool thing about this yield factor thing is I know my yield factor for trimmed down tenderloin is 1.42, right? So it doesn't matter what my tenderloin costs. It could cost me $46 a kilo. I still multiply it by 142, it will tell me what my edible portion price is. It could cost me $5 a kilo. And if I multiply it by my yield factor of 1.42, it will tell me what my edible portion price is. So that way I can cost really, really efficiently. Brilliant stuff, in my opinion. Another red star slide, just to really sum up what I've been talking about in the last couple of slides. There can be a considerable difference in cost between the raw product, that's the as purchases as it comes in, and then the processed tenderloin as it's going out to the customer. And it's why it's important to go through all of these steps. If you look at the example there, you see the whole tenderloin originally cost me $23 a kilo, and that was my as purchase price. And my edible portion price is $36.66. That's what I have to use for all of my costings, for all of my buying, etc., etc. Once the edible portion cost is determined, the menu price can be set properly and accurately, and you're going to make money. You're welcome. Another red star slide. So we're going to look at yield percentage in action. Now this is a sample question. You will definitely be getting this in your midterm, or a version of this question in your midterm, maybe even next week, and maybe even in your final exam. So this is really, really important stuff. So here's the question. Your banquet dinner, so you're going to have a banquet dinner for 180 people. And you want to have 65 grams, that's edible portion size, as it's on the plate, prepared and cooked, 65 grams edible portion of asparagus. Now I know, I've worked all this out before, asparagus has got a 60% yield. So I now am asking you, what is the as purchase amount that I need? How much do I need to buy in order to give my guests 65 grams of cooked, trimmed, beautiful asparagus? So let's look at the question. We'll break it down and we'll figure out how to work this out. Relatively easy once you remember. So last red star slide, yield percentage in accent. Let's look at how to work out the problem that I gave you in the last slide. So there's a few steps. First of all, I need to find out the number of guests, which I got in my question. It was 180 in this case. I'm going to multiply it by the edible portion amount that I need. In this case, I need a 65 gram portion, and that's going to give me the total amount of asparagus that I need. So 180 guests multiplied by 65 grams edible portion. In total, edible portion wise, I need 11,700 grams. I know that's 11.7 kilos, but we've converted it into grams and we kept it in grams because it's easier to work out with the smaller amount, or the smaller unit, I should say. So the next part is the total, which in this case is 11,700 grams. We're going to divide that by the yield percent, and we know that it's a 60% yield of asparagus. So we're going to divide 11,700 by 0.60. Remember, we have to move the point 2 places to the left when we're dividing by a percentage. And that is going to give us a total of 19,500 grams. So in order to make sure that my 180 guests get 65 grams of cooked asparagus and trimmed asparagus each, I am actually going to have to buy 19,500 grams of raw asparagus untrimmed in order to feed my guests. Otherwise, I'm going to have too little by the time I peel it down. So remember, we got that magic number again. We're going to change it into grams and grams into kilos, 1,000, the magic number. So in this case, our total amount required was 19,500 grams. We're going to divide that by 1,000 to change it into kilos, and it's going to give us 19.5 kilos that we have to buy. So in order for me to buy, to serve my 180 guests 65 grams edible portion of asparagus, I have to buy 19.5 kilos of untrimmed asparagus. Now, there's a wee bit of a problem because I can't buy 0.5 of a kilo. My supplier won't allow me to do that. So you always have to round up in a problem like this. So we have to round 19.5 up to the nearest kilogram amount, which is 20 kilos. In actual fact, the answer to my question is, if I have 180 guests and I want each guest to have 65 grams of asparagus on their plate, trimmed and cooked beautifully, I am going to have to buy 20 kilos of raw asparagus to process down in order to feed all of my 180 guests the 65 grams that I want them to have. It's brilliant stuff. Once you get this, it's incredible what you can do with it, and you're always going to be making money. You're always going to be able to buy the correct amount. Now, we will have a couple of these questions next week, so make sure that you learn this pretty well. I don't think it's difficult. Once you've got it in your head, it's fairly easy. And remember, any questions that I do set for the time being will have the steps in it. So when I ask you a question like this next week, if you see on the top right hand side there, it shows you the different steps and they're written in red. That will be on the paper so that you can follow the steps till you learn how to do it properly. Anyway, that concludes this week's PowerPoint. Have a wonderful evening. Thank you.